You're listening to Shoe In, covering the ins and outs of all things footwear, from sneakers to heels, loafers to slippers, and every type of shoe in between. Brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. And now your footwear insiders, Matt Priest and Andy Polk.
Day 4720 of digital COVID. We are still in our respective basements doing this podcast. We are still developing new content, pushing out new content, sharing best practices. We're all listening together. We are all in this together, folks. I hope you have your tea kettles on today, because COVID is a global issue. We all know it, but sitting sometimes in our basements, we forget. Our footwear brethren around the world continue to face the same challenges, but also are seeing huge opportunities. And this show really is dedicated to bringing in voices from across the pond, and really sharing ideas from their vantage point and their viewpoint about what's happening with the British Footwear Association. Right, Matt?
That's right, Andy. I thought you had turned into a
robot
cyborg on me there. Just
bring me the shoes.
That could be a whole different conversation. But I will program you to hone in on our conversation with the head of the British Footwear Association. That's Lucy Reece-Raybould. Lucy, thank you so much for coming on Shoe In. We are excited to have you on because you've been at the helm at the British Footwear Association about a year now. You and I met in Vegas a year ago, I think this week actually. And you've undertaken a lot of change and you've been faced with a lot of change. So we are glad that you're here with us today. Thank you for coming on Shoe In.
Thanks, Matt. It's great to be here. And yeah, thank you. You gave me lots of inspiration this time last year. And I came back from Vegas and kicked ass with the footwear industry here in the UK.
That's good. And, you feel free to throw away any of the tips and feedback that I gave you. It's well worth the rubbish bin, as you guys would say. Let's talk about COVID. Let's just get it out of the way, and then we'll pivot more to kind of the future of the BFA. Talk to us about what the environment is for retail in a broad sense in the UK right now, and then how are British footwear retailers and brands navigating through the chaos as we sit here in the summer of 2020?
Well, like every market in the world, it's really challenging at the moment. Interestingly, the winners for retail are the tiny towns. I was on a call just before I came to speak to you with a retail friend, agent friend of mine, and he was talking about a little town just outside Oxford called Tame. 12,000 population. The stores are all really busy. All of the retailers are doing great business because during lockdown, they turned their attention to their immediate community and got out there and made home deliveries, offered personalized services. Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, we've got a great retailer in Milton Keynes, which is a big town. She's only been in business for just over a year, so she's only been going slightly longer than I have in footwear and kids business. And she spent the entire time since lockdown going out there and fitting shoes for people in front of their home. So she goes to their home, she drops the box off on the doorstep, she steps back to the end of the path. The mum comes out. She tells the mum exactly how to fit the kid's shoe. Kid's shoe tries the shoes on the doorstep, checks whether it's okay, tries a different pair on, and it's fantastic results that little store's been getting. When you come to London, oh my goodness, it is another story completely for retail. Very, very sad in London at the moment. We're seeing our high-end footwear, Northampton manufactured, Goodyear welted retailers, really, they are off 75 to 90% at this point in the year. They were already challenged. London was already being hit, not entirely sure why, but a lot of downturn anyway in the marketplace. But it's been completely wiped out. There is nobody shopping there. Of course, we've got no tourists. And talking to businesses throughout the UK, varying sizes, not just in the footwear industry, but there is a complete shift away from big offices. Everybody is now talking about, well, we need a quarter the size of the office or an eighth the size of the office because we don't want to all go back. We're all happy working from home. And those that aren't are probably only about 10, 15% of our workforce. So we'll have an office for them and for the rest of us to visit occasionally. Actually, that's one of the tips you gave me, Matt. You told me that having an office wasn't absolutely necessary when you're running an association that looks after people from one end of a country to another. And we've taken that on board. And I have to say, being 10 times more effective working from home, because I'm there for my members all the time. I'm having a lot more face-to-face meetings with them. So that side of things is amazing. There are footwear manufacturers challenged at the moment. We're getting a few highlights from foreign exports. Sadly, not much coming over to the US at the moment. Bit going to Japan and Canada and Australia where they've had a slightly easier life. But our own manufacturing here in the UK is being really badly hit, as we are with our sourcing and branded companies importing from around the world into the UK. Retailers are just offhand cancelling massive swathes of orders, sitting on stock that they've currently got, not selling it down, saying, well, we're just going to keep it till next year. Autumn winter orders, I would say, are probably off by about 40%. And current stats for the year for retail sales, at least, are looking at being about that 30 to 35% off for footwear and leather goods, according to our latest set of statistics. Another tip from Matt was get the stats, share the information with the industry, which I'm really thrilled to say we are finally doing with the lovely Gary from FDRA, who I know is your genius. And he's turning into a bit of an Anglophile as well. So it's really great to have him on board. So,
oh my gosh. No problem. So as we think through, let me ask you this, Lucy. As you think through these trend lines on what's going on, you mentioned the enhancement of customer service at mom and pop shops, kind of outside of the big city of London and smaller communities, and how they are doing well, but London is really struggling. How long do you think these trend lines will last? And are they trends that will stick in the long term?
Really great question, Matt. From conversations that I've been having, and we're working with one of the local universities who are researching into COVID-19 and how it attaches itself to various footwear materials, leathers and other materials. And the expectation is COVID's in the community for the very, very long foreseeable future. And our expectation is that we will be looking at this current marketplace continuing until we get a vaccine, because until we get a vaccine, consumer confidence is not going to change, and we aren't going to see the high streets, the big high streets, repopulated by consumers at this stage.
Yeah, I'll jump in here too, because I think it makes sense a bit when you look at somewhere like London, where you have a massive amount of people who live outside the inner circle. Most of the branded stores are in central London. You take the tube in, maybe you taxi in. But, in a situation like this where mass transit isn't really what people want to get, you get less foot traffic. You're sitting on high rents. So it's a real kind of mashup. And I think that's kind of the same thing we probably see with New York and some other cities in the US, where that tourist traffic or that foot traffic from outside the city just isn't coming in, and you still have these high rents you're trying to deal with. But I love the stories from the smaller towns where people are really making this about community. I have been saying forever, people need to go out and extend the storefront from where the door opens all the way out into the parking lot or all the way out to someone's home. So I think it's brilliant that these folks are really taking it customer by customer, which means that customer will always come back to that store. 100% always come back to that store because of the outreach. So I love to hear those stories. Lucy, I'm really interested in what you think will happen with product diversification in the UK around manufacturing. We know that there's a heavy leather manufacturing base in London that makes great shoes. I'm wondering if you think as we move forward, if some of those factories retool to start doing more athletic type shoes, trainers, casual shoes with more textile uppers than leather, but even sometimes, an athletic kind of leather shoe now that's kind of catching on. What do you see around trend wise that this is going to kind of reform or reshape the manufacturing in the UK, or is it?
So another great question, which again, I wish I had the answer to, but what I will say is I think our manufacturers here in the UK do need to start to consider new products. However, there is a sustainability aspect for leather. I think in a way, Andy, we actually need to address the consumer concept of what leather actually is. We get all these consumers shouting about sustainability, and we forget that leather is actually one of the most sustainable products we have. Goodyear welted footwear can be repaired, virtually every aspect of it. The challenge with Goodyear welted footwear is that because we've all spent months and months now at home in our slippers, and I don't know about the US retailers, but all of our retailers, particularly the big online people, are saying comfort shoes, slippers, trainers, they're all going crazy for that. And whether the consumer's ever going to go back in any great numbers to wanting to wear in their shoes for an extremely large amount of time, I don't know. So maybe if somebody can come up with an idea of how you stretch the shoes to fit your feet straight away, that would be a great marketing tool.
Totally, especially for kids.
I think one of the challenges that the retailers are going to, or that we're going to find as consumers, and I'm personally already experiencing it, is the lack of ranging. Because we're going to be hit with the buyers not buying because they don't know whether the consumers are going to be there, the breadth of range that people are offering. I was talking to one big brand the other day, and they have reduced their range from 1,000 SKUs down to 250 for the autumn winter. If that goes across the marketplace, consumers are not going to have the choice. But it may in itself bring in some diversity for those mom and pop stores, which you were mentioning, Andy, because they can buy smaller quantities from slightly more obscure brands, more marginalised brands that give greater ranging to what they're doing. I don't know.
I think that's a great point. No, I think you're exactly right, because it's the question of, can some of these up and coming brands break through, and they've had a hard time, and here's the opportunity where they can provide great value to the consumer at a right price point, and the product mix will be different than what the traditional brands have been putting out there. And it's this kind of idea of, if we think of this whole process that we're going through right now as kind of a rainforest, you've got these huge trees that have been kind of covering the whole canopy for so many years and not allowing other things to grow. And we're kind of seeing some of the dead weight drop off. And that's unfortunate, but it allows us rebirth or regrowth and an opportunity for these smaller brands to really make an impact. But I think that's right. I mean, anytime you have an economic pullback, you have to pull back your SKUs. And it's the same thing, Matt, that we see with tariffs. Anytime we see tariffs increase, people start to say, well, I can't really make this shoe because I can't make my margin, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because it adds to the cost, and it takes out of the commercialization process the product, because it pushes it to a price where consumers won't engage with it. And that's one of the challenges we face with tariffs.
an interesting conversation with one of our very biggest manufacturers here in Northampton, actually, just last week. They are actually changing their manufacturing process completely, or revising it, shall I say. They traditionally have produced 12 pieces of any item they're manufacturing. So whether it's a Chelsea boot in size 10, they're going to produce 12 of those. And they taken the decision from the 1st of August, they are going down to 1. So now that is such a massive shift. It's actually upset the workforce, but it's an interesting concept. This is one of the largest, probably the largest manufacturer of traditional footwear here in the UK. And they're changing their process quite dramatically.
Let me ask you this. Speaking of shifts, let's shift away from domestic production over to the e-commerce side, from one end of the spectrum to the next. In the US, we've seen massive increase in online business. Even for footwear, we've seen increases of 165, 175% week over week when we look at our numbers. And we see multiple generations who may not have engaged with e-commerce purchasing behaviors are now doing that. I'm thinking of baby boomers in particular. Has e-commerce for footwear taken off in the UK? Similarly, how are companies doing on direct to consumer and Zalando and Amazon? What's the current kind of landscape as it relates to online shoe sales in the UK?
Yeah, I mean, the online shoe sales, like in the US, there's been an increase, an incredible pickup with footwear. I would say that probably not quite as high as the US. We're seeing about a 52% increase in non-food retail online, but footwear is probably one of the lower sectors in that. We haven't been going out anywhere, so all those women's dress shoes aren't being used. We're seeing that high-end consumer clothing as well, just not the evening wear, all gone. Bridal wear, which is huge at this time of year, all gone. So while we are seeing I'd say it was the sort of plus 60 year olds really using it for comfort product. When we talk to retailers like DB Shoes and others in that sector, where you're talking about wide and Velcro fittings and softer product, they've seen phenomenal increase. Their online market now accounting for 40% of their turnover expectation this year. It's there, that's a massive increase from about 15% previously, and their marketplace is all that older ladies and gentlemen with bunion problems. So yeah, all the oldies are getting out there and getting on the line.
I have a number. My grandmother was English. I have a number of oldies that I'm related to, and I've been prodding them to do their shopping online from their homes in Barnstaple and Weybridge and Trowbridge and other parts of the country. Yeah. So hopefully they're doing their part.
Yeah. Well, I think that is a huge shift, and that has really encouraged everybody and given that those people who haven't previously used online shopping a real boost, because they've been able to do their supermarket shops online, and they found how useful it is and how they can control their budget, they can control their spending. It gets delivered right to their door. They can have a little chat with the driver. They're actually then discovering that getting a parcel delivered every day is also a highlight to a day. So I think certainly my father-in-law is like that. He's like, what else can I order from Amazon? Oh, sorry, I don't mean to swear at you.
It is a highlight of
we're all using too much.
Yeah. Well, all right. So we've gotten the landscape. Let's pivot now to kind of the changes you're undertaking at the association, because we have a shared interest in your success, and we have a lot of companies that sell to your members in the UK. We have a lot of brands that sell do a lot of volume in the UK specifically. So how are you kind of pivoting the organization to meet these new times? And what is like one or two or three takeaways you'd want listeners to understand of what the BFA does and is focused on trying to do in this environment?
I guess I have shaken it up. The BFA was a bit of an old boys club when I joined, and for some obscure reason, the board decided to take this 120-year-old organisation, employ the first woman, the first non-footwear person, and the first person for at least 20 years who's actually lived in the county where the BFA is located. So they're a bit mad, but
they're pressing their luck, not a footwear person. That's dangerous.
Hey, but actually, I love this industry. Oh my goodness. I'm certainly not going back to that awful twinkly stuff in jewelry and all those silly watches. This is my life now. I love it. It's a really great industry. And the British footwear industry is a phenomenal organisation. There's just such a diverse range of entrepreneurs and passionate people. Most of them have either got Clark's or Pentland's stamped somewhere on their personage. It's quite funny. I don't know whether you have that in the US, but people come in this industry, they've all been through one or two of the big organizations.
Oh, yeah. Oh, of course. So incestuous. Everyone's been through Nike or Payless when they were in existence, or Wolverine, or they make the rounds. Definitely.
So, but that actually adds to the enormous charm. For me, we are at a pivotal moment for the British footwear industry, and I'm determined that the BFA is going to do everything it possibly can to fight for that industry. We're doing a lot of government lobbying. Again, inspiration from you guys. A huge part of what I'm now doing is getting down there and talking to government on a daily basis. We've had quite a lot of success, which has shocked everybody, but I'm really happy about it because we've managed to get the minister actually talking directly to us about footwear. We have 3 individual footwear briefings, which have never happened in the history of the BFA, with a government minister, and we've got our first government minister coming actually to Northampton to visit some factories, providing our town isn't locked down, which it's on the edge of being. So that's all very exciting. I think what we're here for is to connect. That's one of the reasons you and I have kept our relationship going, Matt, is because we can see the benefit for British companies selling and presenting their product in the US, and for US companies presenting and selling their product here in the UK. I think there's a massive synergy. We've always had a special relationship with the US here in the UK, and I think that I want to make sure we maximise that. I think there's fantastic opportunity for American brands and British retailers. So we've got a great future across the pond as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I love it. That's well said, Lucy. And I'm going to now, because I want to avoid saying the word Brexit in a conversation with a British friend. So I'm going to pivot immediately. Don't say it. I'm going to pivot immediately to Jasmine to bring her in for her world famous What You Got, What You Getting. But before she comes in, the other thing that you and I, Lucy, are working on is a joint briefing between our two industries, our two respective industries, because there is a free trade agreement being negotiated right now. We're not talking huge opportunities because clearly we source most of our product elsewhere. But a few, trading a few million pair here and there on the export side would be a good deal. And it will just continue to enhance our relationship in a permanent way. So we'll get to that. We'll push that out once it's scheduled. But in the meantime, Jasmine, why don't you come in and explain to Lucy how your world famous What You Got, What You Getting segment goes.
Yes. Well, Lucy, I think you're a perfect candidate for this because first, I love all your excitement about the industry. I think, sometimes we talk to so many vets. It's like they've been there, done that. It's like very cool to have somebody who is just like kind of newly in it and very excited about it. So, and talking to another association. So thanks for joining us today. What you got, what you're getting is us telling the audience what we have on our feet right now and what we're planning to purchase. I'm really interested in what you've been wearing during this stay-at-home time, and if you're buying any shoes in the near future.
Oh, right. So I have literally done what I probably do at home all the time. COVID or no COVID, if I'm at home, I live and die in my Birkenstocks. Sorry, I have too many pairs. They are so comfortable. They're just amazing. Or I'm in my running shoes, which I can't even remember what the brand is, and I'm really sorry for that. It's a very obscure running-only brand. So I have been offered several pairs, and I have to say there's a big brand where somebody gave me a pair of that big brand. I'm not going to mention it. They're really uncomfortable. I can't run in them, so they got relegated. So yeah, I'm actually quite excited. We've had a new member called Edward Green join us. They're based in Northampton, and I've got on very well with the lady who runs it, and she's promised me as soon as we can go to the factory, I'm getting a pair of her really nice Goodyear welted ladies shoes. So I'm very excited about that. I'm desperate to collect my Doc Martens. So yeah. That's my shoes. Oh, no, I forgot. I also bought 2 pairs of shoes recently from one of our littler manufacturers called Esker. Absolutely to die for. Pair of pink peep toe shoes. Quite high. 4-inch. They're gorgeous. Yeah, but I literally wore them for my husband's birthday on Saturday night in the house. Felt absolutely stupid walking down the stairs to the kitchen where we had dinner. You know, it's like, oh my goodness. And from the same company, Esker, I got this gorgeous pair of burgundy ankle boots. So yes, I have been buying. I forgot.
Holy cow. I feel like you were hosting the BAFTA or Oscars there. Like you had to make sure you got all your thanks in. You're buying a lot of shoes.
Well, I feel like Lucy's actually building onto her house to house her collection of shoes that she has been buying.
Maybe right-handed.
Well, Matt does the same thing. Matt is also a collector of many types of shoes. So I feel like you got kindred spirits between the both of you.
Yeah,
that's true. So let's transition. I am currently wearing a pair of Keens. I've taken up boating, and I'm not a boater, but I crushed my foot on the cleats that are on the dock where you tie up ropes a multitude of times because I was wearing flip flops like an idiot. And so I've upgraded to Keens, so I've got those on. And one thing that's in my British footwear blind spot, Lucy, is I've never owned a pair of desert boots, the Clark's Classic Original. I just never had one. And so I think I've got Doc Martens, I've got normal Clark's. I just never have had those desert boots. So I think that'll be my next purchase in celebration of our partnership.
Oh, well, I think we also need to get you a nice pair of Goodyear welted, maybe ones with a royal warrant on them, maybe something like that as well, Matt. So we'll see what we can do now the factory's back up and running.
That would be awesome.
I am wearing some Sperry's topsiders just around the house because they're super comfortable. But I'm waiting for the delivery in the mail, but I've got a pair of Sanuk's new shoes, the sustainable shoes coming to my door, where they took the Blue Maca outsoles and midsoles, where they took factory wasted foam, so foam that didn't make it through the normal process at a factory. They took it, they ground it up, and they made it into new outsoles and midsoles. So about 75% of the midsole and outsole are completely recycled, which is, unique considering typically the molds and the foams are the biggest challenge around sustainability. I think a lot of people have been doing a lot of good work around uppers, uppers are a lot easier than it is to making foam because that's where the durability comes in. That's where the comfort comes in. But Sanuk has really stepped it up. The uppers are recycled. The midsoles and outsoles are recycled. So I'm really excited to get it and try them out and see how they feel. Sanuk's well known for comfort. So I'm really excited that companies, even in this age where we are today, are still messaging about sustainability to consumers. And that speaks to me. So I make purchases. I'm typically looking for information on how they're using new materials or recycled materials that have a less impact on the environment. So that's what's got me really excited. And I hope they come in the next couple of days. I need some.
What about you, Jasmine?
Well, I, again, have a birthday coming up. So I was asking our events and marketing assistant, Sabria, some like good options to purchase. And she said the Space Hippies. So she introduced me to the shoe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen it before. It has some sustainable components to it as well, but I have to kind of like read up on it. But it's just a really cool shoe, something that I haven't seen before. I've heard some people even work out in them, so I'm surprised that they're even that comfortable. The upper looks really flexible, so I think I might just purchase a pair only because they're just so different and nothing that I've really seen before on the market. So I'm kind of excited about that.
Are you trying to get Sabria's discount? Is that what you're trying to do?
No, she doesn't even have those at the store, but I wish.
You're from the Space Jam generation, Jasmine. So to set that aside and be Space Hippie might be a shoe too far. I'd love to see.
Yep.
Well, folks, Lucy, I can't thank you enough for joining us today to have this conversation, to check in, to give people a heads up of what's going on in the UK marketplace. It's a vitally important marketplace. We sell millions of American branded shoes there. So thank you for coming on Shoe In. We hope to have you back soon and look forward to a fruitful partnership in the months and years to come.
Many thanks, Matt. It was great joining you, Andy and Jasmine. Thanks a lot.
So, folks, this has been Shoe In. You can check us out at shoeinshow.com or on just about every podcast platform you can think of. Please subscribe so we can up our downloads, and please rate us 5 stars only. If you rate us below 5 stars, you're automatically kicked out. It's just how the system works. It's some kind of quirk. Don't ask me about it. I'm not a tech nerd. But I will tell you that 5 stars is all we take.
5 star.
5 star. We encourage you to check back in often. Each new episode comes out on Monday morning just for your listening pleasure. And on behalf of Jasmine and Andy, this is Matt, and Shoe In Show is out.
Shoe In has been brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. For information about FDRA, visit fdra.org.